So first and foremost, I'd like to welcome our in-host guest here, Dr. Elhadj, who is the Secretary General of the International Red Cross Red Crescent Federation. And welcome, and it's such a busy week for you with the Anga taking place and all the natural disasters unfortunately happening around the world. How are you feeling right now?
Overwhelmed, like all those people on the ground who are experiencing those shocks and disasters, but humbled at the same time, because we are the ones that are so privileged to be where we are now today, and trying to be part of the solution rather than the problem, trying to help rather than being a victim. And it is a time for humanitarian action, principled humanitarian action, where every minute counts. And so we are all committed to do the needful to support people in need.
It's an interesting time because oftentimes we hear about humanitarian needs unfold around the world, and at the same time we need a lot of different types of solutions. There's political solutions, there's also economic aspects, there's social aspects, there's moral aspects. How do you navigate that in both your personal life and then also in your professional life, in the sense of how do you weigh what crisis gets your attention and when, and how do you balance that out with the political aspects?
I think you started exactly with understanding the complexity of the issues. It begins all the way with individual behaviors and attitudes, the way we consume, the way we treat our environment, the way we drive our cars and then we travel. All that will be impacting on this only one planet we have and then we share. That if we don't take care of it, it will come back and haunt us. It is about also individual behaviors in terms of interests that are being pursued, be they social, be they political, be they economical. And that will also create gaps and disparities, socio-spatial that we have seen, of course, but also gaps and disparities between the rich and the poor, between men and women, between those who lived in urban areas and those in rural settings. It's about also geopolitical interest, that are pulling into different directions, that are leading also to conflicts. But at the end of the day, it is the same people living in the same communities that face those multiple deprivations of all kinds. Now, we need to, of course, have a political solution to political problems. And when we are here at UNGA, it is really appropriate to call in the UN that peace prevails, that end be put to the conflicts that are getting more and more protracted so that people get to a certain level of normalcy. Until then, what we have to do is to be there, and there all the time on the side of the people in need, to accompany them to respond, to accompany them to build their capacity to withstand the shocks, to accompany them also to build the resilience so that next time around when those shocks arrive, it will not find them always in the same level of vulnerability. So complex problems that calls for complex solutions. That means that not one single organization, not one single individual can do it. It is a call for partnership between political leaders, humanitarian actors, business, and community leaders all together, to make sure that together we can have an impact that will be at the level of complexity and the level of scale and magnitude that is commensurate to what people are experiencing on the ground.
Well, I think you bring up some really important points. You talk about climate, you talk about the political aspects of the fact that we do have climate and political refugees. We have wars that cause people to be displaced. We have famine, we have ongoing issues around the world. And I think you touched on something also important, which is the magnitude of problems. I think oftentimes people feel extremely overwhelmed. In the past couple of weeks, we see disaster after disaster after disaster, and people don't know where to turn. And also, all day today, we've heard about social media and digital media and the role that plays not only in connecting people, but then also kind of thinking about the negative aspects of how could that potentially overwhelm people. What is your feel on kind of what does humanitarian aid look like in this digital social media world where people click on Facebook and, for some people that is, they consider that have done something meaningful. What do you say to that kind of complexity also when you start to bring in this aspect of helplessness because of the magnitude, but then also we reduce solutions to oftentimes such simple things, and that murkiness? How do you navigate that as an institution?
Well, we can feel sometimes overwhelmed, and that is quite natural, that is humane. And, but on the other hand, the fact of not knowing about it or not dealing with it, will not solve the problem. So we better face it, because that is our reality. Our reality from a humanitarian lens is, unfortunately, a 3D reality, a D of disease, a D of displacement, and a D of disasters. And we're in the middle of that. But there is even the fourth D that is getting eroded in the middle of it, which is the human dignity of people, that they're waking up every day trying to recover that which is extremely important to them. So disasters, we're not helpless in the face of disasters. Natural shocks happen. There will be a monsoon season every year. There will be a cyclic drought every year. Sometimes the Zambezi River will get out of its bed and it will be flooding its banks in Malawi and in Mozambique. That's natural. But the fact of those shocks and hazards becoming a disaster or not, that will depend pretty much on our level of preparedness, the early warning, the early alert, and the early response that we're also implementing. Coming back to social media. Social media can be very useful for early warning, very useful for early alert. Bringing the problems closer to home, that we understand it. That also communicate the globality of the global nature of the problems we face, no matter where it is happening, unless and until each of us is safe, as far as epidemics and diseases are concerned, none of us is safe. And that's why you understood when we have Ebola outbreak in West Africa and Sierra Leone and Liberia, within 48 hours, one case can be imported right here in New York City. So there is a global world that we have global problems that require global solutions. So that the interconnection, the connectivity, and that alert is very important for social media. It also communicates a sense of solidarity and a sense of global citizenship. That you see people that building communities and communities of carers that are not always confined in geography. People live thousands, tens of thousands of miles away, but then come together around some ideals, aspiring for same goals, saving lives, alleviating human suffering, and being part of this humanity we share. If it is not done properly, it can go the opposite direction, that communities of frustrations also be built, and then communities of the hopeless and those who have nothing to lose be built. So it is then up to us to make sure that we accompany that in a positive way and through principled humanitarian action, save lives, alleviate human suffering, save this planet, which is the only one we have, and then the only one we share.
Precisely, and we heard this morning actually from some of your young volunteers in Singapore and in Kenya, in Nairobi, and they joined us to share kind of their own aspirations on why they got involved with humanitarian aid. And I'd want to just highlight one thing. I think your organization is also very unique in that you're working with local capacity. You're looking to build local capacity in different communities around the world and help make sure that they are prepared so when disaster does strike, and it does inevitably all over the world in all different forms, that there is a response mechanism that's built in, and you don't sit and spend countless hours kind of not having a response mechanism. What do you think, what is your message to people that are watching on how they can personally think about their role in being prepared to be a humanitarian, for those that are aspiring to work in the humanitarian space, and maybe for those that don't see themselves as humanitarian, but we're trying to convince them to be more humanitarian? What's your message for them?
So we at the Red Cross and Red Crescent movement, we work in 190 countries around this globe, 17 million volunteers on the ground, including the young ones that you mentioned that were here before, who are our heroes. They live in those communities, they work in those communities, they are the first responders, and that is very critical. It is in the communities where then outbreaks happen, and that's where it will end. It is in communities where people feel that there is something unusual is going on here, and some surveillance mechanism can be put in place. It doesn't matter how early you get into a disaster scene. I have not witnessed or experienced and cannot even imagine that we will go to any disaster scene where we will not already find people there in the very first hours doing something. That is your neighbor, who's your first humanitarian worker, who will bring you a loaf of bread, when it is needed, bring a bottle of water, take care of the children, that are sick. And those are the ones that are hosting the migrants and refugees before any intervention happens. So I think we have something fundamental here, which I call the humanity we share, that we can build on. And this is also upon that our fundamental principle of volunteerism, the fundamental principle of principled humanitarian action, for impartiality, of independence, are all built in. So first of all, let me use this opportunity to salute our volunteers, our heroes.
We all
to
salute them.
salute our young people who are there on the ground, that make us all look so good and so proud. And then also open the door that everybody can do something and everybody can spend, can offer your time, your skills, your heart, whatever you have, to help. And we welcome, everybody in that movement, which is a wonderful privilege, to be there and then to do what we're trying to do.
Absolutely. Well, thank you very much. I know you're extremely busy for taking time out of your day to be with us. I think it's extremely inspiring to see all different sides of your organization, even here on this stage with us today, and seeing how you guys are really preparing yourself for response. So we will definitely continue to support you and hopefully inspire people that are watching to also log in, log online, look up the work that there is being done by Red Cross, Red Crescent societies around the world, and register. Register, volunteer, sign up. As you heard, no act of kindness is too small, and the world definitely needs it. So without further ado, I just want to thank you again and let you get back. You're leaving on a flight, so thank you for squeezing us into your busy schedule.
Off to Mexico and Florida.
Off to Mexico and Florida, and please do send our regards to those that you meet with also. So thank you so much, and we will be bringing on our next guest, but I wanted to definitely salute you and thank you first. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
And